Hello, everyone. It's Marc Sabatella from Mastering MuseScore, and welcome to the Music Masterclass. And sorry if you also got a notification a little earlier that the cafe was broadcasting. It wasn't, just another one of those technical gremlins that shows up sometime. So, hello, everyone. Really looking forward to looking at some music today and just talking about what you all have been working on and give you some of my feedback. So, as always, the chat is a nice place. I like when people are checking in here and um, letting me know where you're from and letting me know if things are actually working and all things like that. Also, um, as always, this whole series is brought to you by my Mastering MuseScore School. And the courses that I offer there. So if you haven't already checked them out, please do so. They're really nice. The course for learning MuseScore and courses for learning music theory. And as you'll hear me talking about next week, I'm going to start doing something involving jazz specifically. It's really fun. I've been kind of planning this out, how it's going to work, and I think a lot of you are really going to enjoy what I'm going to start doing just to get us through the rest of the year here. So. So again, welcome people, and I because of the glitch where the cafe started broadcasting without my knowledge, and I was trying to sort out what happened. I didn't get a chance to check out the latest in if anyone has posted any new music in the last few hours here. So I'm gonna to go make a quick little check over there and make sure I've got the music that I would want to talk about here. And yeah, I did actually see Sam talking about Trevor's piece. I want to talk about Trevor's piece for sure. Um, and yeah, I think everything else is things that I've got. So what I'm going to do, um, there's always so many different things one can talk about, right? And what I want to do right now is just I'm going to start with Trevor's piece because it's really nice, and he started um, a discussion about it that has to do. Wait a minute, where did I put it? Okay, well, I will make sure I download it again. I thought that I already had, but no matter. Um, so the piece itself is what he calls a poem, and it's written in such a way that it's designed to evoke a particular mood. And so he's calling it a character piece. Now, when we ask, well, what is that mood? It's a little sometimes hard to put that into words, right? And put words to things. So, uh, to me, I heard a quality of longing when I listened to it. But it gets more intense also. So it's if it's a longing, it's an intense longing. Um, so I'm just going to let you listen and kind of make your own associations about it. And one of the questions he was asking about is he was thinking about trying to make a series of these. And if you're going to do a series of these pieces where it's evoking a mood, well, then the question that's going to come up is what other moods are worth exploring? And, you could try to write a piece to evoke a mood, even if you're not actually feeling that mood in the moment. It's probably easier to think about creating a piece to create a mood if that's a mood that you're actually feeling in the moment. So, all of which is by way of stalling so that I can get that piece downloaded here and opened. And as always, things want to be a little slow while I'm broadcasting. So it's taking me longer to stall. And in any case, this is a solo. No, it's not a solo piano piece at all. It's a piece for piano and cello. And, geez, there was some discussion about the clefs used for it because it does get pretty high. I've got the most recent version here, so I think Trevor may have made some changes. Um, let's hear the piece. It's not too long, so we'll just hear the whole piece through and then talk about it some. Sorry, I need to pause it there because playback is not cooperating too well, but I'm going to try starting it again right here. All right, in that case, what I'm going to do is flip over to measure 63 on MuseScore.com and let MuseScore.com play it and see if that comes out any better. Sorry about that. Let's hear MuseScore.com play starting. I'll start right here. Yeah, beautiful piece, Trevor. So I'm seeing some nice, fun banter in here also about it. So I saw also a comment about measure 10, and now I've forgotten which measure 10 is. So I'm going to jump over to measure 10 and just see where that is. Okay, well, it's a part of it. Okay, well, it's a nice little call and response in the piano there. Um, Maybe that's what it was referring to. Perhaps I misunderstood. But yeah, lots of really nice stuff. So I want to talk about a couple of sort of simple technical things to talk about here. Meanwhile, I welcome in the chat just put in your own feedback, your own questions about things, questions for Trevor, questions for me. Trevor asked questions of me, and I'm going to just kind of pick apart the things that I think are interesting to talk about. So the first thing I do want to talk about actually is the playback glitches that I was having. So as you all know, when I'm broadcasting here, it seems to tax the system, and so normally I can play a score like this with no problem. However, I will say that if you're going to have problems, extended passages in octave markings like this are the places where you can kind of predict you might have problems. Now, not here, maybe because it's moving slower, but it was when it started having all these 16th notes under an octave marking, where it started to back up, right? This is like a known kind of weird thing that happens in MuseScore, and I think someone even has sorted out why. There's just not a fix for it yet. Where if you have a long passage under an octave marking, it taxes the system more than it actually has any right to. And it makes no sense to me that it does, but someone has apparently figured out why. So my comment is, for practical reasons alone having to do with playback, you might consider whether you really want to notate that as with the octave marking. I'm going to suggest that even for readability reasons, I don't love this. I love the music, but I think I would prefer to just see, let me see where that passage goes until. It goes a long ways, right? It goes all the way to the start of that arpeggio. So I'm going to delete that octave marking, and I'm just going to select that whole passage from there to where it started and raise it an octave. Oh, I guess it was more than one octave marking. In any case, check this out and see if it doesn't play smoother. Oh, I see. There's separate octave markings here. Yeah, so there probably didn't need to be, but in any case, well, okay, I guess I'm wrong about that being the only problem. In any case, it is a known issue. Let me get rid of the pedal marking for a second, because I know pedal markings are normally safe, but who knows? Yeah, so I can't really say why it's so stuttery. But in any case, there are known issues that show up with that sort of thing. So in any case, I also, just as I said, from my own perspective, I'm going to undo those changes. From my own perspective, I would, this isn't too high for me to want to see the E, written in, with ledger lines above the staff. Now there's passages up here. Oh, but this passage is as written. So yeah, I actually don't think, for me personally, I would want this written with octave markings. I would rather see it written at pitch. Now, I realize that in doing that, it's going to create more room between the staves will be necessary, but whatever. Paper's close to free. Anyhow, that is my take on that. Okay, so that was one thing I wanted to say. Another thing I wanted to say is the piece is clearly very rangy for the cello. And you can see that MuseScore is warning you about this, right? It's warning that note there is high. It's colored in this sort of dark yellow color. It's kind of a greenish color, and that is the warning that, hey, this note is going to be hard for amateurs to play, and that's okay. It doesn't need to be easy to play, but I will say that there are places where the range. There was one place where it went just like really, really, really high. In a place in is this it? Yeah, this is extremely high here. And so I don't know, you said that you got feedback from a cello player, and hopefully he said, well, yeah, I can play this. But it is quite high, right? What I will say about this is it does limit uh the dynamics that are possible at that in those really high notes, because now you're dealing with a shorter string, and intonation can often be an issue in playing these extremely high notes, right? Those can be they it's not that they're not playable, if you've got the finger strength and the skill to do it, but it does tend to often come off maybe not as well as you think it's going to. MuseScore is unfortunately too perfect about its playback. So it helps to be really familiar with the instrument when pushing its range, to understand not just a black or white, yes or no, playable, not playable, but what's it really going to sound like, and what constraints are going to happen? What is this going to mean for, like, what kind of dynamics you can make happen and things like that. Uh, uh, so yeah, anyhow, my comment there isn't that this isn't unplayable. It's that you might not get that C sharp to be as loud as it sounds in MuseScore, and against these thunderous chords here, it might not balance the way you think it's going to. So that's a comment there. One other comment about range. Is something you're using the full range of this cello. It's really effective in how it sounds here, and it adds drama to use all that range. There's a couple places where some low notes that you're using, I'm going to call attention to it because it does work, but it's worthy of attention. Passages like, I think here, no, that's not one. It's more here. So this G here is a non-chord tone, right? We have basically a D chord happening here. It's a D major chord. So as just a general point, these sorts of really of these kind of non-chord tones, this is a fourth. It's the fourth of the note resolving to a third. It's not a suspension. It's not set up by step. It's an appoggiatura, leaping into it. Typically, we don't put really dramatic non-chord tones like that. By dramatic, I mean it's on the beat and it's lasts kind of a long time. We don't put those sorts of dramatic non-chord tones so low. But it adds to the drama. So I feel like you've done this effectively, but I wanted to call attention to it because if other people are writing music, I want you to be aware that you have to really think about it, and whether this is the sound you want, whether that low fourth is really absolutely what you want. And there's other places also in that same passage where similar things happen. Here that G happens and it's a flat 9, I think. Right? So this is like an F sharp chord, an F sharp minor chord, F sharp, A, C sharp, and the G is a flat 9 on that. So it's a very dissonant note against that F sharp. So it's not that you can't use that note. And again, I think you've done this very effectively. But for other people watching this and thinking about, well, what can I do? What kinds of things are good to do? What kinds of things to be careful of? This is a be careful of. Using that particular non-chord tone, this flat 9 on a minor chord, it's a very dark, dissonant sound, and it's a great sound. Normally we wouldn't put it so low, but in doing this, it really adds to the drama of it. So to me, when we talk about the mood of this piece, it's easy to think about just the broad gestures of it, how there's big chords in the piano and the melody is this very I don't know, song like, boom, ba, da, da, where these, just putting these notes out there, long notes, a singable melody. But that's part of where this mood comes from, but part of it is in these details and the use of the dissonance like that. So so there's a lot of these details, and the other thing is there's a harmonic thing that's going on that is really kind of in my world that I live in a lot when I'm writing music, um, which is uh, making reference to traditional harmony. There's places like I was able to reference that G chord. I was able to look at that and say, hey, look, here's a G chord, and I'm sorry, a D chord, and that G was an appoggiatura, right? That is something that makes sense harmonically, and even how you're getting to that. So that's a chord, an A7 chord going to a D chord. That's 5-1 in the key of D. That's all traditional functional harmony. And yet, the whole piece isn't that way, right? It's sort of weaving in and out of really clear functional harmony and things that are much less so. There's places where it's more about things over pedal point. I guess that's pretty traditional there, but even just right off the beginning, this is pedal pointy. When I say pedal pointy, I mean it's all about that repeating A, and then it does go to a C chord. But there's all sorts of chord sounds in here that are that are individually they're chords, but it's not necessarily as predictably tonal as 5-1s. And as I'm playing those sections, I'm like, well, actually, that section's not that hard to parse that way. But there's other sections that really. Yeah, so like this section, so this is like late romantic era kind of harmony. This is like, later Chopin and Liszt and people like that. It's coming from that kind of harmonic perspective. People who are informed by tonal harmony but are starting to push the boundaries. So that's kind of the language of this. Uh um, that's going on here. And I really love that kind of language because you can talk about things like 5-1 and all these traditional things that we might talk about, and yet also just say, you know what, I want this sound, this particular cluster, or this whatever. And so I should have paid more attention to the specific spots. Yeah, that's like, what is this sound right here? That's a very kind of dissonant, clustery sound right there. Right? And so it's not one that comes directly from that lineage of Beethoven and so forth. It's one that's pushing it a little further, pushing it further than maybe Chopin would have pushed it, although probably you can find an example. And so it's definitely this later 19th century vibe of staying within a tonal landscape for the most part, but incorporating these other sounds. And so when you do that, to me, what makes it all work is the same thing that makes triads work, which is voice leading. It's all about voice leading. So right here, if we follow the melody, that's a lovely line, right? It's just moving down in steps. In that case, half steps, as is this piano part, the right hand, right? So that's the same basic line. And then we have this line here, this triad here, then voice led to this other triad here that's more of a diminished triad. So the fact that this C sharp connects to that C sharp, right? This A sharp connects to that A sharp, this F sharp resolves up to that G. I mean, this is all good voice leading. And uh so yeah, there's if you do things with good voice leading, you can create all sorts of dissonances that seem logical. And so I think that that's a big part of what I hear in this. Places where the dissonances if you just focus on the actual dissonance, you're like, well, I don't understand what that chord is doing there. You don't have to. It's moving lines within a texture. And these moving lines, if their voice leading makes sense and it all kind of resolves into a nice place, like check out what happens. We have now we're on a B chord, right? And so this is a clear sense of kind of an F sharp chord resolving to B. There is that 5-1 going on there, 5-1 in the key of B, but it's just got this interesting voice leading going on top of it that's dissonant against it. So these are the kinds of sounds that you can really, I don't know, dig into once you've made the decision that you can do that. And I think that's one reason why the beginning is so effective to start this piece, because it establishes right off the bat that chromaticism is going to be okay, that we're going to be able to have this A chord, this A in the bass, and a E chord against it, and an A in the melody right against that E chord, right? So we're getting this dissonance right within the realm of this A minor chord here. We're getting a 5-1, but treated in a way that's got some dissonance. Now, Bach uses pedal point too. It's not like that's a late romantic thing, but the fact that he's got the A against the G sharp, it's really not just G sharp against the bass pedal point that's dissonant. It's actually dissonant against the melody itself. So to me, this is an excellent way of kind of predicting this piece is going to have some dissonance and you're going to be okay with it by introducing dissonance right off the bat, but doing it in a relatively easy to digest way. You get, oh yeah, there's 5-1, there's pedal point, there was a little dissonance in there. It kind of sets a good table for you. And also I like, normally if I'm talking about just purely functional harmony, I would say, well, wait a minute, there's no third in this chord. Right? I'd say, oh, you've just got these open fifths. Who wants just open fifths? Well, the answer is Trevor does. Trevor wants those open fifths because he doesn't want to be saying, hey, I'm speaking a triadic language here. He's saying, I'm creating a sound of an A minor kind of a vibe, but without wanting to be too explicit about the chord, because you don't want to lock yourself into functional harmony if you're not going to totally live within there. And again, yeah, most of the piece can be looked at, phrase by phrase as, yeah, this part's kind of functional within the key of B, or this part's functional within the key of C, or whatever. But the way it moves is, again, pushing those boundaries in that sort of late romantic kind of way. So a C at measure 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh God, I'm calling that an A. I'm reading treble clef. Sorry about that, Trevor. But still, it's dissonant, right? It's creating a augmented chord. Yeah, you're right. I'm silly. But still, the same idea. It's creating a certain dissonance, and yeah, you're absolutely right. It's nowhere near as dissonant as I said. It's just an augmented chord. But yeah, we get that idea of some dissonance against this pedal point, and get to kind of savor that from the beginning as a hint of things to come. And then these like sounds that come in here. So this right here, that's another one of those like really dissonant sounds. We've got this open fifth again, which is already and so the thing is, this is not parallel fifths. And yet, I hear it as if it were parallel fifths. And I think it's because what it really is direct fifth. To use the classical term for it, you're leaping directly from an octave to a fifth in both voices there. And so this is a sound also that's actually post a little later language. There's more Bartok language going on in here of treating fifths in that particular way. And then this time I'm reading my clef right. That is a D. This is a D that we're hearing against this C sharp and G sharp, right? That is a crushing dissonance. And yes, it's just a neighbor tone, but it is a crushing dissonance. especially coming as it does on top of this open fifth following that octave. So thinking about things like that also has a lot to do with creating the harmonic world we're in. This is not the world of just triads. It's the world of these richer sounds in which that fifth is okay. Bach would not have written this. Mozart would not have written that, right? Beethoven would not have written that. Really, this measure would not have been written before the 1880 or I don't know when, but it's definitely got a modern sound to it, although so much of the piece is still rooted in a lot of traditional harmony. And the heartbeat is definitely a thing. It's kind of like got that raindrop prelude. Again, thinking with Chopin on my brain, that the repeated note is the feature of that famous prelude. So in any case, there's so many things going on, and then he talks about the form of the piece being ternary, which means there's basically a melody, and then there's another section, and then we hear some version of the original melody at the end. That's the basic definition of a ternary form. And at some level, sonata form is ternary in that um, we have our exposition and then our development and then our recapitulation, right? So that's a three-part form. But then the exposition itself is two parts, right? There's an A theme and a B theme. And I think that's not quite so much the case here. It's more built on a single theme within that A section, although I wasn't really analyzing it with that thing. We have the repeated line here, and then we have the da 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 dum, and then in this section here, it's like the roles reverse, right? Now the cello has the repeated line, and it's like the piano has something that's more akin to this. Now, I haven't really looked at it to see the relationship, to see if this line is related to this line or not. Trevor, maybe you could answer me that. If this original melody is related to what's going on in the piano down here. It's not obviously so, but it certainly could be, and I'm just missing it. And then this piece, that this section kind of comes to an end with a cadence, a really happy major cadence, and then we have this new section, right? And this is a more lyrical section, cantabile. Um, and so the lyrical section in this case here, it's the same key, the same time signature. There is no key signature because it's not in a key, right? It's just constantly moving key wise. So there's no point in using key signatures. I think, at some point people kind of gave up on it. Chopin, if he had written a piece like this, might have used key signatures and changed them every few measures. At some point you realize, not worth the effort. Just skip key signatures. So, so this piece, this section here, feels like it's more or less in some version of A, right? It's got sharps. It's got like 3 sharps in its key signature. This D sharp feels like it's out of the like it's not diatonic, like it was a tonicization happening or something. So you're thinking of this section as A minor, or at the beginning, you mean A minor? Because at the beginning certainly is A minor, but it doesn't stay there. Is my point. It kind of moves. Now the whole beginning section does stay closer to A minor, right? It's the middle section that does more moving. The beginning section does stay closer to A minor. I will definitely grant that. It's the middle section where we're moving through keys a little faster. And now we've got the repeated thing going on. So, it's basically feeling like we're in B by use of the repetition and the triad here. And now it feels like we're in A by the repetition there, right? So and yet then the A starts to feel like it's going to E minor in this case. A, to B to A. And here, this note here is a D natural going to a D sharp and then coming back to this D. So this is again one of these things that feels not explicitly tonal. Because if we were really trying to talk about E minor, I would expect these all basically to be D sharps. But instead, he's got D natural, D sharp, D natural, D sharp. So he's kind of playing games with where are we going here with this thing, the D and the D sharp. Yeah. So the beginning definitely starts. I mean, the second section definitely starts in A, but then it does the Romantic era thing of moving around more, which is why I think you didn't bother putting a key signature there because, and if you had, I would have said, eh. Now it does stay in the realm of sharp keys for the most part. So I will grant that it doesn't change as dramatically from key to key. The keys are mostly related keys that it's moving between here. Which helps it feel more connected to Beethoven and so forth, and Mozart and somewhat older music. So yeah, there's just so many really nice things going on in here. And here's that original melody again, come back now in a much more forceful tone. So these triplet figures were deceptive to me because I was listening to them and not hearing the triplets. I think MuseScore is not enunciating them as well as you would want. Right? Am I singing those pitches right? Wow, good enough. Yeah. Though that has a deceptive difficulty to it in that if you think about it, the way you would probably pull that off is bowing really quickly back and forth like this. To get that repeated note, because if you just try to play a repeated note in the same bow direction, you're going to hear what we heard here, which was not a lot of definition. Like I can barely hear MuseScore playing 3 different notes, but I can hear it. If you gave this to a real cellist to play and they tried to play that all on one bow, ba-da-da, or where each triplet was a single bow, you wouldn't hear the definition of the note. So I think they're going to have to go boo doo 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 doo. I think they're going to have to do a lot of this. If there's any string players, you might be able to give your feedback on that. But that's going to be a lot of quick bow motion, which isn't necessarily particularly hard. I mean, that's what tremolo is. But you add on top of that the fact that, first of all, it's double forte. So now you've got only the way that you can normally get fortissimo is by big arm motion. So now instead, now you've got little motions that you're trying to do loud. So you're going to have to do that really hard. And that's going to make it hard to then accent the first one. And then furthermore, the accents are going to be up bow, down bow, up bow, down bow, because it's an odd number of notes, right? It's going to go, I'm trying to be a cellist here. And of course, it's not literally up and down, it's side to side, but we still call it up and down, I think. So it's going to be like whichever bow direction you start with, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. So each triplet is going to change the direction of which bow direction you're on for the accent. So what I'm saying is that this measure is actually like a deceptively difficult in a way that's not obvious or it's not obviously hard, but there are those complications that would come up in trying to play this. So yeah, I'd be curious because yeah, there's nothing about the speed of the notes themselves that's hard. It's the placement of the accents, and then relative to the volume at which it's played, it would be interesting to see how that comes off. Because yeah, again, individually the notes aren't hard to play. I'm just thinking from what I understand about string playing, what would go on. Now for piano, this kind of stuff is great because this rocking octaves is easy. We can rock octaves all day long and it's a breeze. So there's that. Now, one thing I wonder about is if you actually tried doing the same thing in the cello part, if that's actually sensible or not. I don't even know if that makes any sense at all. I mean, musically, it might not be what you want, but I'm just wondering if that would allow you to play it each triplet on a single bow because now you're changing strings. Oh, I wonder if you could do that by changing strings. If it weren't so high, probably so. So in other words, you could play this A, I call it an A because I'm reading bass clef, but it's an E. This E followed by that E, but play them on two different strings so that you can do. So that might be the trick. That might be the trick to play it across the strings if you could stretch your fingers that far, which you might not be able to. I don't know. It's interesting. So yeah, thanks, Chris, for the feedback there about that. So yeah, the triplets themselves, double forte, you're saying not necessarily a problem, but the accents probably wouldn't come off. And the accents are maybe are more important than triplets. And so if you were concerned about that, if you heard the result of a cellist playing this and said, "Oh, I missed the accents," you might consider, would plain 16th notes give you the feel better? Or would there be something else in terms of bow technique? What's that thing where you bounce the bow on the string button? I don't know if there's things like this that you could work out with a cellist there in person or even via a Zoom call to try some things out, because some things maybe involving extended technique to give you the overall sound you want and then agree on the right way to notate it to get you the effect you want. So yeah, mostly I'm just looking for potential problem spots here. So in any case, yeah, this is a really nice piece, and I knew I wanted to spend some time talking about it because there's so much to talk about. And when there is a nice big piece like this, it's not super long, but it's longish. And I like to be able to have some times where I talk about one piece for a long time because other weeks I might be talking about shorter pieces for shorter periods of time. And I did that the last couple of weeks a little more, and I'm going to be doing that over the next couple of months because, again, as I keep hinting, this jazz project that I'm going to be uh, looking at and hoping that some of you will join me on is going to mostly involve relatively short things in which we'll hopefully be able to look at multiple pieces in each session. So, uh, So anyhow, that's this wonderful piece by Trevor. And yeah, if anyone's got more suggestions for him or more questions for me, I'm happy to talk about them. I want to do one more follow up on uh, a couple of things from the counterpoint course that people had done. So Dean had done a couple different versions of a fugue, and I had given some feedback last week or the week before, maybe both, and he keeps improving on it and is still working on this, I think, unless he posted yet another version and I missed it, which is certainly possible. And if so, I'll see it when I see it. But I'm going to just take a look. It would be in the fugue section here under the project. There's no comments there, so that tells me that that's not where he's posted a final version. But here under the Fugue Part 4, I want to just see if there's a more recent version of anything in there. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I don't see anything more recent in there. So I'm just going to play you the beginning of this fugue to make a point that's related to something I just heard in Trevor's piece. So I'll stop it there. Actually, I'll just play it through. Yeah, Dean. So yeah, I especially like the end. The ends of fugues are so fun because you get to then just do whatever you want over these last couple bars and throw some stuff over some pedal point and put a picardy third on it if it's minor, and you can kind of get away with a lot of stuff in. And when I say get away with, I mean it doesn't have to necessarily feel like it's entirely related to the original subject. Once you've stated your last subject, you can do things. You can introduce dissonances, you can introduce new voices, and just really try some stuff out in this final couple bars. And I just love this. This is, yeah, I just love that ending there. And there's a lot that I love about this piece. But so the couple things I wanted to point out is, well, first of all, here's pedal point in its Baroque type of context. So the pedal point is this D, right? D, D, D. And I'm singing that low D because I can, because it's still the morning. I'm doing that because the piano is not sustaining it as well as an organ pedal would. An organ pedal, that would be a really impressive thing. And on on a big grand piano, that D would sustain better. On MuseScore's Playback, it doesn't sustain as well. So anyhow, this is pedal point. When I talked about how Bach might have used pedal point, this might as well be Bach, right? It's totally in that language, yeah, Dean. So that's that. You totally feels like how Bach might have used counterpoint. I mean, how he might have used pedal point. So you can compare and contrast that to the pedal point here, which is different, right? The slower harmonic motion, the use of the repetition, everything about this is a different thing stylistically from what's going on in Dean's pedal point. But that's actually not the thing I wanted to talk about. It's right here. I made the point in comments to Dean, and I think Dean, you said that you heard this too now. This is a parallel fifth that's not a parallel fifth. What's happening is one voice has the D, G, and then A, and then another voice comes in with this E. So there's not like there's two voices that have a fifth, and then those two voices both move by step to make another fifth. That's parallel fifths. And yeah, this voice is giving me both notes of the fifth. It's giving me both the D and the G. And then coming in right after that is the A and E in two different voices. The effect on my ear doesn't care which voice was which. My ear just says, hey, I heard a perfect fifth. I heard this perfect fifth. And then I heard that perfect fifth. My ear is aware of the two fifths in close proximity. The effect that it had on my ear was almost identical to the effect that this had. This leaping to this fifth here. Now, in this case, it wasn't coming off a fifth, but it was coming off of an octave, right? And the fact that there was that dissonance against that fifth caused me to hear a similar thing. So in this case, this felt like, well, that's fine. We're using a harmonic language that is not trying to sound Baroque, not trying to sound classical. It's more late Romantic and then some, right? This is the most post Chopin section, perhaps, in the piece as far as that goes. That's debatable. But in Dean's piece here, this comes off as this parallel fifthing. And so the observation that I made, and this also relates to something that came up in discussion on MuseScore.com, I think, what generally works really well is if we plan. So the answer comes in here, and he's got the answer coming in a fifth above, which is the norm. But often what we do is, because the subject started with an A, scale degree 5, we normally have the answer start with scale degree 1. In other words, we make this tonal adjustment so that it still feels like we're in D minor, at least for the first note or two. And then this note, instead of coming to an A, I'm going to bring it down to an F. And I do this for two reasons. One is because then it harmonizes nicely with that D, right? We get A against D. That's 2/3 of my D minor chord. It feels like we're in D minor. And remember that, if you remember this from when we did look at it a couple weeks ago, there was some question about what key it was in. Now there's not. It's clearly D minor. Right? That's clearly D minor. And now it's back to D minor, right? It's very clearly D minor. And the other thing it did is it allowed this G to move by step to that F, which even before everything else was changed, I remember having struck me before those fifths arrived. I remember thinking, "Oh, that G feels like it wants to move differently than it did," but I didn't quite comprehend why. Now I do. It's because in the key of D minor, this G is scale degree 4, and it kind of wants to go to scale degree 3 because that scale degree 4 is especially in proximity to that C sharp. We're hearing this as an A7 chord. The C sharp and the G and the A at the beginning of the measure, we're hearing some A7 in there. And that G kind of wanted to resolve to D. So in any case, by just paying attention to those things from a voice leading perspective, it causes a little ripple effect because now we're like, oh, I have this D, and then, oh, now this note might have to adjust also, and there might be some adjustments there. So Dean, I see that you're saying that you've got another version ready to upload, so I'm definitely looking forward to hear that. So yeah, so and I just wanted to make those comments there because I thought it was really interesting that I heard that quasi parallel fifths here that I also heard something similar to here, because the question often comes up about parallel fifths. How much does it matter? And the question is, well, the answer to me is it matters when it matters, and it doesn't matter when it doesn't matter. And so this is a direct fifth that is very stark, and it's almost exactly identical to the parallel fifth example from the Bartok that I actually use in my counterpoint course. In fact, let me just load that up because why not? Uh, the counterpoint course is here, courses, counterpoint, and it was counterpoint in 2 parts, interdependence. Here's my Bartok example. Check this out. So when I say it's reminiscent, we get things like this dissonance against there, and we also get that dissonance of this against here. So we get that open fifth with a dissonant note against it. So that's why I say Trevor's piece, that one little section, actually reminded me a little of that Bartok example. So in any case, yeah, parallel fifths are an interesting thing because when they're or parallel fifths, or in this case direct fifths, when they make sense, they make sense. And if you're I also use the example of power chords in a rock context, they make sense. And other times they stand out, and so that's why you pay attention to them. And so this isn't a parallel fifth in that classic sense. The plugin would not have detected it, but it was worth mentioning. But then after that, it's like, oh, everything else makes perfect sense. I mean, this all is lovely. This feels like totally Baroque language. And so to me, that beginning thing was like the only thing I heard that was out of the language at all. And I love the modulation then. So that section right there, so yeah, is just nice. So we're in A, B diminished to A, and then there's this like minor-y thing. It's going to a flatter key. And when I say a flatter key, well, this A here isn't sounding like a 5 chord at this point. It feels like we're in A. Right? The fact that we just had this little cadence makes me feel like, oh, we're in A. But no, we're not. We come back to D minor, and then we have the circle of fifths thing. That feels like it's going to go to F. It feels like it's G minor, and it feels like it's going to go to C and then go to F. But it doesn't. It comes back to D minor, and then the bass line continues rising. E flat, C, D, E, and then to A, except with the C in the bass. So in any case, there's this really interesting sequence of chords moving harmonically. That's nice voice leading, nice harmonic motion that achieves a particular modulation that I really enjoyed. And frankly, it doesn't remind me that much of Bach there. It feels more modern than that, but not out of place with it. It's like something that I could see Mozart having tried at some point when he was wanting to play some fun games. And I would like to think that if Bach ever heard that, he would have gone, "Oh, that's cool. I want to try that too." So anyhow, that's something I particularly liked in there. And yeah, there's just a lot to like in this. And the thing to me that's the most fun about this process here is that I got to check out this fugue at different stages in development, because that's the way the kind of course is structured, where at least that part of the course is structured, where writing the fugue, we take in little sections. So I got to see the beginning of the fugue started and then give feedback on it, and then saw more of the fugue and give feedback on that. And because Dean's the only one who had made it through all the way in this, he got basically a nice private lesson on it and on this. But I'm really looking forward to when more people get that far through in the counterpoint course. The project that I keep alluding to that we're going to start on, that I'm going to talk about next week, I'm going to have everyone who wants to participate move through at the same pace, and so we're going to have a lot of hopefully a lot of people all doing the same thing at the same time. And it's a thing. It's called a cohort based course, and it's something that I think that you all will find really fun, at least anyone who has any interest in jazz piano at all. So yeah, the color choices, as mentioned, were just to help you see the voice. And yeah, you can do that easily. Like if I want to color in here all the notes of voice 2, you can select the measure and then go to view, selection filter. I usually use the shortcut, which is why I had a hunt for it. And then if I unselect voices 2, 3, and 4, now only voice 1 is selected, and I can set it to be whatever color I want. Oops, I select a color and I can make it, I don't know, green. And now voice 1, oh, I forgot to press set color, silly me. Let's try that again. Select my green. Okay, and then you have to hit the set color button for some reason. And now voice 1 is green. So in any case, yeah, it is quite useful if you're writing a fugue or any piece like that in which there's a single theme that moves its way through the piece in different variations, and you want to make sure that people can see it. You wouldn't do that for actually publishing the music, but use it if you're turning it in and you want to get comments on it, and you want the person giving comments to understand what you did. It's a nice little device. So I'm glad to see people doing that some. So all right. So I'm going to wrap up here and thank everyone for being here. Thanks, Dean and Trevor, for the music. And yeah, next time I'll look at some more music and also give you kind of a really good preview of the project that we're going to do, or that some of you, hopefully a lot of you, will be doing. And we'll talk about that next time. So that said, let's take it out. So again, this has been Music Masterclass with me, Marc Sabatella from Mastering MuseScore. We do this every Thursday at this time. Have a lot of fun just digging into music and talking about what comes up. It's different things every time because we're looking at different music every time, different people. I'm all about getting more people submitting music. So please submit more music so I got more to talk about. But actually, for the next couple months, it's going to be a lot of stuff having to do with this project. So next week would be a good time if you want to get some other random piece in. Next week will be a good time for me to be able to focus on it. So check out the link at the top of the page for more on my online courses. Go visit the community, post your music, and I hope everyone has a good week and full of good music. See you later.